What's going on, everybody? It's your boy Scott Proctor alongside my guy Matt Morris. Per usual, we're back with another episode of Simple Question, but this time we'll have more than one because we got a special guest joining us today for the first time, NFL Draft Senior Director at Pro Football Network, Cam Mellor. How we doing, my man? Thanks for joining us.
I'm doing great. It's post round one, post 32 picks, post multiple kids' lives changing for the better. Yeah. So I'm doing well. I'm very little sleep, but doing well.
No doubt. It's an exciting time for sure. Let's hop right into things, though. Let's start at the top of this first round of this 2022 NFL draft. The Jaguars selected Travon Walker, the defensive lineman out of Georgia. What do you think gave him the edge over Aidan Hutchinson, who many people thought would go number one overall? And was that the right decision by the Jaguars to, opt for Walker over somebody like Hutchinson?
Yeah, it's a difficult question to answer. Why, I guess, is the best way to say it. You hate to go in with the rumor and say that it was because of spite for Trent Baalke not liking Harbaugh and passing on the Michigan kid. I don't think if I'm in that situation, I'm not taking either one of them. I'm taking Jermaine Johnson, but we can get into him later. I think his upside is far, far greater, but I think we're seeing a little bit of the microcosm of the Micah Parsons effect. Travon Walker does not have the skill set that Micah Parsons has, but it's that versatility. He wasn't asked to do maybe what he's going to be asked to do in the NFL level as much, sort of like the Micah Parsons, where he was, an off-ball linebacker who rushed the passer very well, rushes a passer incredibly well in his rookie season, a dominant guy. And so Travon Walker is going to be able to be that guy who kicks inside as far in as, three tech on the inside, shading off guards and centers. This is a guy who can do it all. And so he can drop back in coverage, but his bread and butter is going to be that edge rushing role where he can then sort of find his favorable matchups. I like the pick fit-wise, but with as much movement as we saw last night in that first round, I think they could have, opted to maybe get a little bit higher upside in a guy like Johnson at number one.
Cam, you mentioned something that I don't think I've heard, because I know Matt and I are certainly higher on Jermaine Johnson, but would you have considered selecting him with the number one overall pick? Do you think his upside is that high and worthy of that selection there?
Absolutely. I think you're looking at a guy who, not only the intangible process, his mental processing, his motor, his durability. Yeah. I know maybe people are questioning character concerns, but I never saw it. There was a rumor of him maybe not necessarily giving his all in practice to start the year at FSU last year down in August. But it's hot in Tallahassee in August. I'm not, if I'm a guy who's going to be a top 10 pick, I'm not. Yeah. Okay, fine. It's a bad example. But what we saw on the field, he's only got like 600 snaps in his college career, and every one of them was at a high level. The linear growth that he took from week to week, durable motor skills. To use the proverbial draft terms, there's bend, there's power, there's strength. His stunts are amazing. His backside run defense. This is a guy who does it all from an edge rusher standpoint. And I know it's not the most attractive pick to pick a guy with one great year, but that one great year was one of the better years we've seen from an edge rusher in recent history.
No doubt.
No, I completely agree with you, Cam. And I think the other thing that he got, nicked for was the fact that he was in the ACC rather than like the SEC. I know that was something he talked about a lot, but he did do well against Aquanu, one of the best tackles in the draft. And going off of the Johnson stuff, he's probably the biggest example of a guy that was possibly top 10 falling, like drastically falling. Was there anybody else that you saw that you were kind of surprised that they fell to where they were at that kind of made you think that this was a steal?
Yes and no. I probably am higher on Kyle Hamilton than the consensus. I know I am, because I think he was my number one prospect overall, him and then Johnson at 1 and 2. So to me, I knew that his safety being highly coveted in the top 10, top 5 is where I would have had Kyle Hamilton. Wasn't ever really going to come to fruition, but he's a guy in that same mold. And I hate to use the FSU mantra here because I'm sitting behind and underneath Doak Campbell, but a Derwin James, he changes that Chargers defense in a way that he's that movable chess piece. You can put him in the box as a strong safety. You can let him roam free as a free safety. You can put him in the slot, put him outside, and he'll cover, receivers to the best of his ability, which is almost as good as mainly most of the corners in the NFL. Kyle Hamilton has that same sort of versatile skill set where he's an elite free safety, closing space. 50 yards on the back end in the blink of an eye. He brings the wood in run defense, runs the alley like he is a middle linebacker. This is a guy who's going to change the Ravens defense. So to get him at 14, he's a cornerstone defensive player for a team who needs a younger kid that's going to lead this team for the future.
Cam, I like the way you're talking right now. You're making me feel really smart, especially with the Kyle Hamilton, with the Jermaine Johnson stuff. Last night after the first round ended, I tweeted that I think the two winners of the first round were the Ravens getting Kyle Hamilton to where they did, getting Linderbaum, the best center in the draft, and the Jets as well, getting basically 3 guys in the first round who could have easily went in the top 10. I thought those are the 2 winners of the draft. I think you agree for the most part. So I want to ask the question this way. There were obviously a handful of teams, the Jets and Ravens being a couple of them, who had multiple first-round picks, and maybe I already kind of foreshadowed your answer here, but which of those teams that, had multiple first-round picks, do you think made the most of them, of those multiple selections?
Yeah, I think I could answer it one of 2 ways. The Ravens, for moving like they did very well, and they got a little bit lucky, but maybe they knew that nobody was going to pick Linderbaum in the first round, so they could sort of maneuver their way back down there. The Jets winning the draft. I mean, you move up to get Jermaine Johnson in that first round. The guys they have, it's Sauce Gardner, my cornerback one, a guy so I used to work at PFF. I actually charted his freshman and his sophomore season games. He did not allow a catch for more than like 13 yards last year, but also he never allowed catches for more than 20, 25 yards. And obviously the stat of never allowing a touchdown. I know he's in the American Athletic Conference, the AAC. It's not known for their receivers, but to start for 3 years in the Cincinnati defense and to be the number 1 player that, he just wasn't targeted. He single-handedly made Kobe Bryant the Jim Thorpe Award winner, because Bryant had a bunch of chances too to make plays on the ball because they just weren't throwing it at Gardner. So the other team that I really liked was the Giants. They sat still. Yeah. They bided their time. They waited. They got edge 2, Kayvon Thibodeau, and then they got their biggest need, which is Evan Neal. And I know the moving from left tackle to right tackle, we just saw it with Penei Sewell. It's a very underrated, difficult thing to do, because Sewell played left tackle his whole life. Evan Neal, not that guy. Played right tackle his freshman year, played left guard his sophomore year, and then last year left tackle. So this is a guy with versatility. He's going to slide to right tackle immediately and start opposite Andrew Thomas. That's a bookend pair of tackles for Daniel Jones in a contract year.
No doubt.
Yeah, I mean, again, like Scott said, you're making us sound really smart from what we were talking about before the draft. But going off of the multiple picks, there were some teams that you thought were going to go one way and they completely went kind of a different direction, especially like the Packers, thinking that they might get a wide receiver. Kansas City was another team that was in that right wide receiver mix. And even the Ravens, to some extent, especially after trading Hollywood Brown, I thought they might try and do something at receiver. Were you surprised that those teams didn't go offense, and in particular the wide receiver, or did you kind of see once the receiver went early that they were going to go defense and they'll try and address that later on?
Yeah, I think that's what it is. I had the hardest time of deciphering my wide receiver rankings from like 6 to 14. I really wanted to rank like 10 guys at 32 to 42 and just leave it at that. But I had to, parse out the rankings. So the top half of round 2 is as talented in the receiving core than even some of those guys that went in round 1. So I think once we saw 6 receivers in the top 20 for the first time, either in 2 decades or in history, that was really pushed the hand of the Chiefs and Packers to say, we'd be reaching. Let's go with other reaches. The Packers being Quay Walker, but I don't hate what the Chiefs did. I know they did what they could in free agency too. So maybe they're going to bide their time. It makes sense with this class. But the second we saw that many receivers go and Jahan Dotson go in round 1, that was probably the tipping point. Said no more receivers.
No doubt about it. I want to stay on the receiver topic just a little bit longer, because obviously there was a run on them in the early teens. There's 6 total taken in the first round. Which one of those 6 receivers that were taken in the first round do you think is going to turn out to be the best pro, whether it be just simply talent or where they landed in the situation that they'll be playing in at the next level?
I hate to go chalk, but it's Drake London. He was, I covered USC very closely in 2021 or 2020, excuse me, and watching his level of play, better than Michael Pittman. Honestly, probably one of the better players I've ever seen in college football. That athleticism from what they showed, the 540 windmill dunk that he does, that was every day for him doing that in the gym at USC. I mean, this is a kid who he shouldn't be able to move like he does, as fast as he does. He's probably the best yards after catch receiver we've seen in the past 10 years.
Which is the slept on part of his game. I don't think people talk enough about that part of his game.
Yeah, there's so much that he does, and he doesn't do anything really not at an elite level almost. Same with Garrett Wilson. I really like Garrett Wilson and the opportunity he's going to have. But to me, as long as Marcus Mariota plays some plus football, Drake London coined, they're the Twin Towers, him and Kyle Pitts. They're 2 big dudes with similar skill sets. And to be able to cover both of those guys down in and down out is going to be a tough ask.
No doubt. I love that answer. I had Drake London as the first wide receiver taken off my board in my mock draft. I thought he would go 10 to the Jets, but 8 to Atlanta makes a lot of sense too. I talked to Drake London's high school coach a couple weeks ago, and he just convinced me on the person, obviously, as well as the player as well. So love that answer.
Yeah, I mean, I think we'd be remiss if we didn't talk about the one quarterback that went in the first round, being the NFL and how important that position is. What do you think about Kenny Pickett, and were you surprised that he was the only one taken in the first?
I'd say surprised from the onset, maybe looking at it thinking that just because of the rumors. I don't think any of us really all had first round grades on more than one or two quarterbacks. So you always reach on a quarterback. So it's not really a surprise to see Pickett go where he went. He's the most NFL ready quarterback. So I thought a team that might need one or not have the proverbial bridge quarterback go for it. But it looks like, the writing is on the wall for Pickett to be the quarterback in Pittsburgh. So I'm happy it came to fruition for him. An amazing guy. You bet on yourself at year 5 and it pays off and pays large dividends for you. So he answered every question he had to this pre-draft process. He didn't measure his hands at the Senior Bowl, and we let all the to-do about his hand size. And to me, it works. If you watch him sling the ball, and I was on the sidelines at the Senior Bowl and I was there at the combine, watching some throwing mechanisms with other scouts, and he does everything you need him to. And the zip on the ball that you hear, it was the exact same as all the other quarterbacks. So I don't care what his hands measured in at. This is a guy who's going to be a leader of men, a leader of this team, and honestly, a guy that people are going to rally around. So not to mention he's got elite athleticism.
So is this a little bit of the Steelers not wanting to regret missing on another Pitt quarterback?
Yes. As far back as we want to go in time. Yes, absolutely.
I think that makes sense. I wasn't super high on Kenny Pickett, but I think the fit is just perfect for him. He's going to be surrounded by weapons at receiver. Najee Harris, somebody to hand the ball up to. They're going to have a good defense. They're going to be well coached. So I think that was the best case scenario fit wise for Kenny Pickett. So I don't hate it by any means. Probably last question we got for you, Cam, before we let you get up out of here. There are obviously a pair of major trades involving star wide receivers that went down on the first round draft night. The Ravens obviously sending Hollywood Brown to Arizona, the Titans sending A.J. Brown to Philly, and the Eagles, both of those teams doing that to trade up. What do you make of those moves, and which of those two teams do you think kind of came out the best in those transactions?
We go back to what we talked about just a little bit ago, to the Ravens coming out scotch-free. I mean, they get 23, they move back to 25, and you still get a guy out of a big need. I know they really like Tristan Castillo as well at center. So I'm curious what they do with Linderbaum and Castillo going forward as well, if they kick him out to guard the former Mizzou center, longtime center there. Yeah. So I like the depth they're building. They need it. They need depth. I expect Ravens to do a little bit more offensive line as well. So I like what they did. I don't like what Tennessee did. You move into the first round and you get a receiver who's not nearly as good as A.J. Brown. I know he tested poorly, but Treylon Burks does have a game-changing NFL speed, or speed in general, once he gets going. So you get him in space, but that's the thing. He's going to have a step on a defender. He doesn't have that sort of elite separation ability, and he's going to be uber reliant on contested catches, which that's not a way to sustain high level of play in the NFL when you have, the best cornerbacks guarding you the entire time. So I don't like what the Titans did at all. And Derrick Henry better stay healthy all year if they want to win some games.
No doubt about it, because that receiver room is looking very scarce, especially with Treylon Burks leading the way now. But no, that makes a lot of sense, Cam. This is awesome, insightful stuff. Go follow Cam's work on Twitter and with the Pro Football Network. But that's going to do it for us for another episode of Simple Question. For Scott Proctor, Matt Morris, our guy Cam Mellor. We'll catch you on the next episode of Simple Question.